Well, guys, after 16 episodes, the Muppets Season 1 has finally come to a close, and now I can review the entire season for you guys. And you guys may be wondering why I didn't review the first half of the season, and that's basically because of how different the second half of the season was. And I finally finished Season 1, and now I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on the entire season, talk about the first half and the second half, and let me just say, overall, what I think of the Muppets, this was definitely not a perfect show, but it was very enjoyable. I will definitely say that. Every episode, there was something enjoyable, and just the fact that the Muppets were back on TV and I was able to watch this show and that it got made, that's enough of a reason for me to tune in every week. That was enough of a reason for me to stay tuned, and I really do think it got better and better as it went on. Let's just get into this season because there is quite a lot to talk about. Now, let's get into what you guys, I know, really want me to talk about. The first half of the season, the thing that everyone seems to have a problem with. I didn't have as many problems as everyone did, but I do understand where everyone's coming from. So the first half of the season, as we know, from the first episode, it was very mean-spirited, it was very adult humor, things like that. For example, but I do think they did some clever things here and there that they couldn't really do in the original show. Like, for example, the Electric Mayhem, getting high, I think that was pretty funny. The way that they got high on, like, brownies or whatever because they were special brownies, I think that's pretty hilarious. And it makes sense for the Electric Mayhem. I mean, they pretty much are, hippies, so it makes sense why they would act that way. I definitely think that was very clever, things they did with that, or something like, hearing about their sex life. I do think they went a bit too far, though, in terms of some things, but let's get to the main plots of the first half of the season, because mainly we focus on Kermit, Miss Piggy, and Fozzie. That is our main focus throughout most of the season, and we'll get to the thing that most people, were upset about, is Kermit and Miss Piggy. As we know, Kermit and Miss Piggy have broken up, and it's a very harsh breakup. Like, they are constantly at each other's throats, and Kermit doesn't want her to be with anyone else. Like, it's very strange. Kermit definitely, I think, in the first half of the season, kind of came across as a dick at points. Really, he did. I mean, he has this girlfriend, Denise, that he clearly doesn't pay a lot of attention to because we barely see her throughout the season. We see her about 2 times in the first half of the season, and both times, the first time we see her, she's kind of just the girlfriend for him, and then this, the girlfriend that kind of calms him down and things like that he's with, and then the second time we see her is when he's giving her a birthday present, and Miss Piggy got the present for him, and it's, reminding him of their song, "You Are the Sunshine of My Life," and this really upsets Denise, obviously. And they really didn't get to do much of this relationship. They really didn't. I mean, most of it was just Kermit, was distracted and didn't really pay attention to Denise, and I really don't think we really got Denise as a character. And it's not so much that I'm upset that they eventually break up in the second half of the season, which I'll get into. It's the fact that we didn't get to learn who Denise really was. Why do her and Kermit work so well together? Why are they together? How'd they meet? Things like that. We don't know anything really about them, and they didn't really do anything with Kermit and Denise, so I was honestly quite upset when it had to do with Kermit, because a lot of the first half of this season is Kermit manipulating his staff and basically being a dick because things aren't going his way, and he's going to make sure things do go his way. And that is not at all the character of Kermit the Frog. Kermit the Frog is a really nice, is a nice guy. He cares about his staff and things like that. He's not a dick, and the Kermit they portrayed in this was a dick, and it really did not work at all. I understand it's supposed to be more of an adult, type show, but that really didn't work at all. So I'm very happy they eventually got rid of that. It was a very bad decision to do that to Kermit. Him and Miss Piggy at each other's throats, and that's not more present than in episode 4 when Kermit, Miss Piggy doesn't want to really have fun, and then they go to this party, and then they're having a lot of fun, and everyone shows up late, and Kermit has this whole hissy fit over it. I mean, it just didn't really feel like Kermit, and I really wasn't a fan of it, I have to say. I really was like, wow, you really want me to hate Kermit the Frog? Like, seriously, this is Kermit. I mean, when you think of the Muppets, you think of Kermit. We think of the Kermit logo. This is what you want Kermit the Frog to think? I mean, think of kids that are watching this show, and I know kids shouldn't be watching this show, but I know they're kids that definitely did watch this show, but think of if they were to watch this show, that's what they think of Kermit. I mean, when you show the Muppet logo, you show Kermit's face. That's what you want people to remember Kermit by? I mean, that was a horrible decision, and I don't know why they decided to do that. That was really dumb, I have to say, and like I said, throughout most of the season, him and Miss Piggy are at each other's throats, or it's, they try to be friends, and one of them screws up and does something stupid, and does something that they want their way, and it was really, really stupid the way that was done. Miss Piggy, I have to say, though, wasn't much better either. She was a diva. She was a diva, and I understand she's always been a diva, but she really, I thought, went way too over the top. I mean, and I understand it's the breakup, but even after the breakup, she really went over the top. I mean, there's an episode with Kristen Chenoweth where she ends up possibly hurting Kristen Chenoweth. I mean, it really got crazy between those two, and I really thought they went way too far with what Miss Piggy could do, things like that. And again, I understand it's supposed to be funny, but it's really not funny. I didn't really find what they did with, Kristen Chenoweth, this fight that these two had, funny. I found it to be actually kind of mean-spirited, and that was something that they really didn't do very well at all. So Kermit and Miss Piggy were actually quite unlikable throughout the first half of the season. They do eventually get better as the season goes on, especially when Kermit kind of takes a day off, and he kind of just, he goes to this spa, I believe. I don't really remember. It's, what episode was it? It was a great episode. It was episode 7 when Kermit basically decides to go to this place, this spa to relax, basically, because he's told by Miss Piggy and Denise that he should go to this local spa because things are just too crazy, and he goes there and he has a hard time relaxing, but eventually he gets advice from Jason Bateman, and basically, he eventually finds his happy place, which is back in the swamp, and he starts to sing the Rainbow Connection. It's a really nice moment, and I think it really was the redeeming moment for Kermit. It's the moment where we realize Kermit can still be the way we want him to be, and I like the way that they did that. I thought that was definitely very well done. I definitely really enjoyed the way that they handled that. That was definitely really good, the way they handled, showing that we do have that side of Kermit. And after that, Kermit definitely becomes more caring. He really does want to help the staff, and I like seeing that. I want to see more of the helpful Kermit, and less of the Kermit that just wants things to be his way and no way at all. I thought that was really dumb, the way they handled that. So that's pretty much what happens with Kermit in the first half of the season, things like that. I did like in the mid-season finale, episode 10, where Miss Piggy gave him relationship advice about Denise and what to do about her. It was a good moment because you can see that these two are actually becoming friends, and this isn't fake. They are becoming friends. Miss Piggy does want to help him. I like seeing that. Even though you can tell she still has feelings for Kermit, she still does want to help him, and I thought that was well done the way they did that, and I overall really did enjoy that. So, the way that was done, the relation, the way that they did that, from them hating each other to liking each other, I'd like to see them be, friends then at each other's throats. That's just not Kermit and Miss Piggy. That's not how they act. It doesn't go with their character, and I'm glad that they got rid of that. So that's pretty much what happens to Kermit and Miss Piggy in the first half of the season. And there are some ridiculous things that they do that I'm not even going to get into. Let's talk about Fozzie, because Fozzie really has a plot, and then it doesn't go anywhere, really. His plot revolves around Becky, as we know, his girlfriend, who, again, I don't think we saw enough of. Basically, what ends up happening with Becky is that, at first they bond really well together, they're working really well. He does this thing where he starts to have this stand-up joke for Becky, and, it's one of my favorite, jokes that they did, probably the whole season, is where he starts to joke around with Becky in his stand-up, and then she jokes around about him. Very funny stuff. For example, how the song True Colors makes him cry. I mean, one of my favorite moments of the season by far. The actress that played Becky really did a great job. The problem is they then ruin that relationship when Kermit thinks that, him and Denise and Becky and Fozzie are on a double date, and basically he thinks that Becky was cheating in the game that they were playing, and Becky, asks, why would you think that, and things like that, and she gets really upset, and we don't really know what happened there. We know that things are rocky between them. And then episode 10, they've just broken up. And we don't know why they've broken up, but they broke up, and we never hear of Becky again, which kind of sucks because Riki Lindholm really did a great job as Becky. I think she's one of the few human actors they really put to good use, and they did a very good job with her. So I really thought it was annoying what they did with them just completely forgetting about her and just having all this build-up with Fozzie and her, and then suddenly, oh, no, they're no longer together. It's fine. It really was stupid and very unnecessary, and I really wasn't a fan of them just breaking up Becky and Fozzie like that. Very unnecessary for me. So that really didn't work for me either. I thought that was really dumb what they did. Gonzo does get his own episode, which I thought was well handled what they did with Gonzo, where he eventually does get his own episode. was happy about that. He gets an episode where it's kind of about he wants to, he doesn't really know if he wants to debate attempting this stunt that he never completed. And basically, David Grohl, when he performs, he motivates him. And at the same time, Gonzo's stunt does go very well. And it really gets Gonzo back to his roots because Gonzo really wasn't having a ton to do. A lot of the first half of the season is him going on dates, or Rizzo and Pepe having him go on these dates. And it really didn't go with Gonzo's character. So I'm glad that we did stay true to Gonzo's character by giving that episode one of my favorites of the season by far, and for me, really was the first, like, perfect episode of this show. They really did a great job with that episode, and I really did enjoy it. So, that's really the stuff that worked and didn't work. Now, some of the things I thought they did very well with in the first half of the season was the relationship between, were a few of the side characters. A lot of the side characters, they gave a lot more to do with them as the series went on. Some of them really didn't have much to do, like Rizzo and Yolanda. They're kind, Kermit's assistant Yolanda. They kind of are just background messing up things like that, or taking people on dates, things like that. That's really all they do. You can tell that Rizzo and Yolanda like each other. What I really like was the really sweet relationship between Janice and Sam the Eagle. It's really unexpected, but Sam the Eagle just starts to feel something for Janice, and we don't really know where it comes from, but he really starts to like her, and you don't know if these two are really going to get together or not, but I thought that was very sweet what they did. I overall did enjoy Janice and Sam the Eagle. It was a sweet relationship. It kind of came out of nowhere, but I like that Sam the Eagle, whatever Janice wanted, he did. Whatever, Janice wanted to do, he listened to her. If Janice liked something, he tried to like it as well. Just a really sweet relationship. I overall really enjoyed, like I said, the relation between Sam the Eagle and Janice. One of probably the most unexpected thing I liked, but I really did enjoy what they did with them. They did a very good job with that. Uncle Deadly, oh my god, Uncle Deadly was so good throughout this entire season. Miss Piggy's wardrobe supervisor, they did a really great job with him. I mean, they had some really fun moments together. Uncle Deadly was so funny, and he really was the most loyal friend to Miss Piggy. I mean, throughout the entire season, he always tries to give her compliments, he always tries to make her feel good, and it's a really sweet relationship. I like the bonding between them, and yeah, Uncle Deadly probably is kind of gay, but they kind of do make note of that, but I overall really did enjoy the relationship between them. I thought they did a good job with that. And then Scooter as well, his comments about his mom's boyfriend, that was always funny the way that was done. I always really loved his jokes with that. And then Big Mean Carl, oh my god, Big Mean Carl was so funny throughout the entire season, as well as Chip, the IT technician. He did a very good job. And then I also really like Bobo. Bobo has a daughter, and there's an episode where she wants to sell Girl Scout cookies, and that's also the episode, like I said, where the Electric Mayhem ends up getting high on the cookies, which I thought was pretty funny the way that was done. So definitely really good stuff there. I enjoy what they did with the side characters. They put them to good use, but the celebrities really didn't do much. The celebrities really overshadowed, I think, at times. I mean, what they do with the celebrities is that, oh, they want to work with this person, or oh, they're going to work with this person. And that really didn't work for me, because a lot of it came across as them insulting these celebrities, or being in a feud with these celebrities. And it was kind of just like, this is the Muppets, not the Muppets and guest star. And I understand they want to do one guest star in episode, but they end up doing like 4 guest stars an episode in like the first like 10 episodes of this season, and eventually it toned down. Like episode 2, there's like 500 guest stars. Episode 3, there's like 4 guest stars. Episode 4, luckily, there was 1. Episode 5, there was 1 guest star. Episode 6, there was 1 guest star. And like I said, as the episodes went on, they definitely started to tone that down a bit. But I'm glad that they stopped doing that, because the guest stars just, a lot of them didn't really do much. Like, a lot of them were just there for a cameo. It's like, oh, it's this person. And that's never really how you handle a guest star. Guest stars should further the plots and never... the one rule with the guest star is you only use a guest star if it furthers the plots and doesn't interfere with the main storyline. And a lot of times that's what the guest stars did. It really kept things from moving along and really dragged things out. And I really wasn't a fan of the way they did that. I really wanted them to do more of the guest stars. And some of them they did. Definitely in the second half of the season, they did more with them. Like, for example, like I said, what they did with David Grohl, I thought that was well handled. Or what they do in episode, or when they had someone sing with Miss Piggy. That was a really fun moment. I like the way that was done. Really good stuff there. I enjoyed that overall. Or even episode 10 where they had Mindy Kaling and she can't really sing. That was really fun the way they did that. But eventually they did tone it down. And then we get to the second half of the season, which was just so much better. I mean, the first half was good, don't get me wrong, but like I said, a lot of the humor came across as very mean-spirited, and it really didn't feel like the Muppets. It just felt like a typical comedy, and the Muppets are supposed to feel special. They never should feel typical. They should feel like themselves. They should feel quirky. It should feel different, and it really didn't feel that way. It just felt like I was watching The Office, but with the Muppets, and luckily in the second half, they really realized what made the Muppets so great, and that's why I love the second half of the season so much more than the first half. I think the second half was a huge improvement. My only thing in the second half is that Fozzie really had nothing to do, but it didn't really matter because he was kind of just Kermit's confidant. Like, he was Kermit's confidant. He was the person that Kermit would go to if he needed advice, and I thought they did that really well. The second half of the season, though, basically, they return from vacation. Miss Piggy has gone to, like, Argentina. Kermit's kind of gone somewhere where he's kind of gotten more happy and rediscovered himself a bit, which I like seeing. But him and Denise are definitely going through some problems. You know, he's kind of focused on work and not really focused on their relationship. It's just too much for him to deal with, and they do break up in this episode, which I was happy about because the Denise storyline, like I said, just was not working. And I think they realized in this episode what was working, what was not working. And by getting a villain really made things better, because that was the one thing the Muppets always had. They had a villain, and someone like Pache, the villain they had for this season, I think worked really well, because most of the villains of the Muppets are really silly. They're mainly just, oh, someone's trying to take over the show, and that's basically what Pache did. Pache wants to ruin the show. He wants to modernize it with all this, like, reality stuff, pretty much what the first half of the season did, and the Muppets realize this is not who they are. They don't want to do this. And at first they're taking his suggestions because they're hearing the show is not as popular and Pache wants to change things, but basically, we see, I also love the way they use Key and Peele in that episode, where Key and Peele were talking about how this is why their show was canceled. Funny stuff there. I've always loved Key and Peele. I think they use them very well. Probably my favorite guest appearance was Key and Peele, I gotta say. I thought they used them very, very well there. But Key and Peele, that's basically, they say why they were canceled, and basically they realize this is not who they are. They don't just, you know, use a bunch of modernized things. They're the Muppets, and basically what they decide to do, Kermit and Miss Piggy, they go back to their roots and they sing. They sing a song together, and it's a really nice moment. It really feels like, all right, this is the Muppets I've been waiting for. This is why I'm watching this show, and they did a very good job with that. I'm very happy that they did go back to their roots, because I would have been really upset if they didn't. I would have been upset if it was just, you know, the way it was in the first half of the season. So I'm glad they did try to change things up, and they definitely did try to get back to that heart. That's something that the Muppets always had. They had heart, and the first half of the season didn't have a ton of it. The Gonzo episode did, and I think the Christmas episode did, but a lot of the show really was missing that heart, and this episode really got back to it. They realized that's what mattered, and I really like that. And also, all the Muppets coming together as well. I like seeing that, because throughout the entire season, the Muppets have their own individual plots, but I like that this episode, they all came together for one reason, and that is to make the show better, to turn the show around, and in turn, they did do that, and I think they did that very well. I definitely like the way that was handled, and, definitely really good stuff. So, like I said, at the end of this episode, Denise and Kermit decide to take a break, and the rest of this season is kind of Kermit and Miss Piggy getting closer and closer. We see the next episode, A Tale of Two Piggies, probably one of the most heartfelt episodes of the season. It's where Miss Piggy has this wardrobe malfunction where her tail's sticking out, and basically everyone, obviously, you know, that's kind of like nudity, kind of, and there's this whole thing that she goes through where she wants to reveal the tail, and Kermit tells her to not be afraid that every pig has a tail and not be afraid of that. It's a really, again, a sweet moment, and they did that really well. They really understand that the Muppets need to be sweet. They need to band together, and they did that really well, and they need to watch out for their friends, and Kermit and Piggy need to be friends, and I thought they handled all that really well. I definitely really enjoyed that, and that really is when I think the show got back to what they needed to be, and they really started not using guest stars as much. Like, they use guest stars, but for good reasons, like for musical appearances, or for someone to motivate the Muppets. Like, that's really what they started to do. The show really became about the Muppets and less about the guest stars, and that's really when it started to work for me. However, throughout the entire season, you have Pache, who basically is manipulating Gonzo, Pepe, and Rizzo, and trying to get them to think that he's better than Kermit. He's, you know, that they should trust him over Kermit, and that Kermit doesn't care as much about them. He starts to get them, like, merchandise and things like that. It's a really funny plot point. I think Gonzo, Pepe, and Rizzo, they worked really really well together. I like seeing them not fall for it. You know, it doesn't work really. They start you at first, but it doesn't really work, and I like seeing that it didn't work as well as Pache wanted to. But Pache still wants to be in control, and you can definitely tell that he wants to be, and I thought they did that well. You also see Kermit, he doesn't really get a response from Denise on the status of their relationship, and they basically just call it quits because she's not going to say anything, so he pretty much just says, okay, we're done, there's nothing more to it, really, so they kind of just end that, which is, it's sad, but I'm glad that they ended, because like I said, the Denise plot wasn't working. We didn't really need Kermit with Denise. I think Kermit realized that Denise and him were just, it wasn't working, and just like the show, it wasn't working, and I like the way that that ended. I thought that was definitely very well handled. But I did like I said, Pache. I thought he was actually a really good villain. He wasn't really funny, but I thought he was a good villain. I overall really did enjoy him. And then the next episode where we had Robin come back, I definitely really enjoyed that episode because basically Kermit and Miss Piggy have to pretend that they're back together, and it's a really nice episode where you start to see Kermit and Miss Piggy reconnect, and you don't really know what's going to happen with them, so good. You don't really know if they're going to get back together. It seemed like they are going to kiss at one point, but they kind of just shut it down. They say that they're going to stay friends, but you can tell that they still do love each other, and I thought that was well handled the way they did that. And then Camilla comes back, you notice. Camilla just comes back when Gonzo, Rizzo, and Pepe have this party, and obviously that's Gonzo's girlfriend, so Camilla moves back into the house. They really didn't do anything with it as much, except that Camilla and Gonzo, they have their own things, and Gonzo's so preoccupied by Camilla, he doesn't have time for Rizzo and Pepe, but I like that Camilla did give him time for Rizzo and Pepe. I thought that was well handled, but they didn't really do much with Gonzo beyond that for the second half of the season, at least, and I think the first half they used him well, the second half they didn't do as much with him, but I did like that Camilla came back, because that's who Gonzo's supposed to be with. Don't have him with, like, Chelsea Handler. I thought that was dumb that they did that. I really was not a fan of that Chelsea Handler subplot. That was dumb overall, so I'm glad that Camilla and Gonzo are back together again. That's back to their roots, and I like that. And now I want to get to the finale, which I know a lot of you haven't seen the finale, because you might ask how I saw it. It already is up on, like, Solar Movie. You guys can check it out and things like that, so if you guys don't want to know what happens in the finale, don't watch the rest of this video. I'm going to spoil the finale, and I have to say, the finale was very well constructed. I definitely really like the way that the finale was done. I think they handled it really, really well overall. As we know, basically, Miss Piggy ends up getting hurt while she's rehearsing with Beyonce, and basically she has to go to the hospital. Kermit convinces her to do Up Late with Miss Piggy, in the hospital. It doesn't really go well because she has morphine, and then because she has this morphine problem where she's saying random things, which I thought was pretty funny the way they did that. Meanwhile, Pache's trying to kind of take over himself, but I like the way that Rizzo, Big Mean Carl, and Pepe handled it, where they basically, Pepe and, Yolanda handled it. By the way, Yolanda's impression of Pache was just perfect. I love the way that was done. But the way that they were able to just fire him, I thought was pretty funny. I definitely enjoyed that. Very funny stuff there. With Pache, definitely enjoyed that. And, basically, the show ends up going really well, though. Everyone really does enjoy it. But on the air, as Piggy's about to go into surgery on anesthesia, she tells Kermit she loves him. He says he loves her back. And he realizes that in this moment that he's still in love with Piggy, which I thought was a perfect way to end that episode, because it took us right into the next episode, which I think was the strongest episode of the season. I really do. It had the heart. It had the funny. It really had everything I love when it comes to the Muppets, because the entire episode focused on, can Miss Piggy and Kermit be back together, besides the fact that, they broke up? Can they still be back together? And that's a question I think we've all been asking, because, we know since the first episode they broke up, and we didn't know why, and I thought they handled it really well here with, can they still be back together? We see Kermit and Miss Piggy, they don't really know what to do. Kermit kind of wants to move forward and tell her that he loves her, while she wants to as well, but you can tell that things just aren't working. I mean, the Muppets start to interfere. They start to, they tell her that it was based on a coin flip and things like that. It doesn't really work as well as, Miss Piggy wants it to. And you can tell that Kermit really does want to tell her that he loves her, but it just doesn't seem to be working. They can't really work together as much. He realizes that the dynamic is going to change, and he doesn't really know if they'll be able to be back together. And she, and also, doesn't know if she can take him back because she's worried that he's going to make the same mistakes, which I thought were very valid points. I think they both had really valid points here, and I think they handled this really, really well. They did a good job of not making making this cheesy. It was actually quite realistic, which is one of the reasons I really love the reason that they broke up, because it was realistic, and they did this well here. And basically, Kermit sees Jack White. He tries to have Jack White sing Miss Piggy their song. It's not enough. She does end up getting on the plane, and before she gets on the plane, she's about to tell Kermit about their relationship, and she ends up falling asleep. So Kermit and her are headed to, I believe, Thailand is where they're going, and we don't know what's going to happen. Cliffhanger, unfortunately. But Rizzo did confess his love to Yolanda, which I did like seeing. I don't know if they're together or if they're friends with benefits like Rizzo said they were. But overall, that's how the season ended, and I really like the way that that was done. The way that Kermit was kind of shy into getting back together with her, just really went with their characters overall. So overall, I really did enjoy the season. Like I said, there definitely were some things that I didn't like as much. The show was never that funny. I definitely will say that. There weren't really many moments where I was like gut busting laughing. There were some moments I thought were really clever, like with the adult humor, but a lot of it wasn't as funny as it could have been. I definitely will say that. I think a lot of the characters were very underused, like Fozzie and Gonzo and things like that. A lot of them were very underused, and my biggest thing is this show gonna get renewed? I honestly don't know, guys, because they lost half of their audience in the first half of the season because there were parents that complained that this is the Muppets and they shouldn't be talking like that, so they left. They're gone. They're not coming back, and basically because of that, I don't know if they got the audience back in the second half, and I don't know if the audience that they got in the second half is enough for the show to be renewed for a second season, which sucks because it ended on a cliffhanger. I mean, I'm sure the Miss Piggy and Kermit are going to get back together at some point, but it's not like a huge thing. Like, I don't really care. You know, I'm not like, oh my god, I need Miss Piggy and Kermit back together. Like, it's not like a huge thing for me. Like, of course, I want those two back together, but you know, it kind of sucks. I'd love to see the show get renewed for a second season, but I think the main problem with this show is a lot of it was very style over substance. They tried to make it like The Office, and that didn't work. The documentary style never really worked as well as it could have, I think. I think some of the documentary style did work, and some of it did. A lot of it didn't work as well as it could have. I mean, a lot of it really did feel like The Office or something like that, and it didn't really differentiate itself from other shows. You know, sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't. It had that heart that the Muppets need, like I said, in the second half of the season. But like I said, the documentary style didn't really do much for the show, didn't really help the show a lot, and I think that's a lot of the reason why the show didn't do as well as it could have. The adult humor, they could have cut some of it out. They got some of it back in the second half of the season. I think there wasn't ever too much of it, but they did go a bit too far at times. Like, for example, when we found out about Fozzie and Becky's sex life, or the Muppets' sex life in general, I thought that was a bit too much. Like, there's a way to be very subtle, and there's a way to be just spurt out every detail about the Muppets' life. I don't need to know about their sex life. I really don't. I mean, these are and I understand that they're treating them like people and not just like, puppets. I understand that, but still, these are the Muppets we're talking about, and I don't really need to hear about their sex life. I really don't. The music I love. I love that they did keep some of the music in there, especially the ending, how the Muppets tried to band together to help out Kermit. I thought that was very well handled. I don't think this was a perfect season. I really don't. Like I said, I don't think the show was ever perfect. Even in the second half, there were still things I'm like, it's good, but it's not enough. There's still just some of the Muppets I thought were very underutilized. They could have done more with them. Ralph, for example, he was there towards the end. He was kind of just there, like, for the Muppet movie where he gave Kermit love advice, things like that. Pepe was great here. Rizzo, I love their dynamic overall. I love a lot of the character dynamics. It's just a lot of the storylines, they didn't really have one recurring storyline. Well, it was really like Kermit and Miss Piggy. For me, though, I feel like the show would have benefited more had it focused less on the guest stars and weekly stuff and more like a serialized format. I really could see the show being more serialized, and they had an opportunity to do that and didn't, and I think the show, like I said, would have benefited more if it would be serialized. It's kind of like Fuller House. I think the show would have benefited more if it was a little bit more serialized. And I understand the Muppet Show wasn't that way, but this show is way different than the Muppet Show. This was a character-driven show, and while it was supposed to be that, it never really felt like a character-driven show. It just felt like the Muppets with guest stars, and that really didn't work as well as I think it could have. But overall, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this first season of the Muppets. Like I said, I really did enjoy it. I don't think it was perfect. I think that there definitely were some things I would have changed here and there. I think, of course, the voice actors did a great job. It's great to see the voice actors back in it. And just at the end of the day, it's great to see these characters back on TV. I think they did a very good job with that. And there were just a lot of episodes that didn't work as well for me. Like, for a lot of the episodes, like I said, very mean-spirited humor. I'm glad they got rid of that because that really wasn't working. The second half of the season, it really did get really great. The finale in general, I thought was very solid. I really enjoyed the way the finale was done. I mean, they really did it in a very serialized format, which is one of the reasons I think the show would benefit more if it was a little more serialized. Also, tone down the mean-spirited stuff, make it a little bit more sweet, and I think it'll definitely be really good if it's renewed for a second season. Do you think the show will be renewed for a second season? Love to hear your thoughts on that. But that's just my review. Hope you enjoy it. We'll see you guys in the next show, which will be for Pretty Little Liars, which, yes, I will be reviewing last week's and this week's, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.